aliens are living among us right now, just as portrayed in the movies. They are harming our citizens and taking over our nation. The conspiracy theorists were right, because the government has known about this invasion for years. There seems to be no end in sight, as more and more arrive every single day. No, I'm not talking about little green men. The alien invasion that I'm talking about today actually comes from right here on Earth. Just across our border here in the state of Texas. In 2023, there were 2,669,251 illegal border crossings, as reported by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. In 2024, there were 2,901,142. I want to tell you all why the illegal immigration crisis is dangerous by breaking it down into three main categories: economy and life, the issue of human trafficking, and how our government has decided to handle it thus far. The most effective form of defense that we have against this invasion and potential issues like it in the future is informed citizens. So prepare to become just that. Now, as we move into the discussion of the effects of this invasion on our economy, there are a few things that we need to consider. Each of these fits into the next, kind of like links in a chain. So the first link in our chain today would be the cost to taxpayers, which, according to a study by the Federation for American Immigration Reform, comes out to about $162 billion total annually. The government sure does a great job of sticking to the taxation clause of the Constitution now, don't they? You see, instead of taking your tax dollars to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, the federal government in recent years has taken it to the high and noble cause of giving free 5-star hotel rooms in New York City to people who are in this country illegally. Wonder why you can't get the rooms you want when you're trying to go on vacation? This could honestly be a part of your answer. But it's not just hotel rooms that this is costing American citizens, as the next link in our chain today would be the loss of job opportunities. The New York Post tells us that, quote, compared to the fourth quarter of 2019, the fourth quarter of 2023 actually showed about 2.7 million more people working, except that 6 out of 10 were not American citizens, end quote. As if the fact that we are losing billions of dollars collectively to pay for people who are in our nation illegally wasn't already enough on its face, we the people are also losing thousands of chances to even have anything to pay up with. With that, we come to the next link in our chain, which is the unfortunate but natural result of policy like this. That would be increasing poverty. The Center for Immigration Studies explains it by telling us that, quote, drastically increasing the supply of workers by tolerating and downright encouraging illegal immigration is certainly an effective way to stop wages from increasing for the poorest Americans. Illegal immigrants specifically are most heavily concentrated in food preparation and service, building, cleaning and maintenance, groundskeeping, and retail sales, end quote. The report goes on to add that the wages for many of these jobs have been drastically decreased as a result. But the last thing that I would like to point out as I talk about our economy and our life as a whole as American citizens is that our own federal government doesn't even have us at the top of their priority list anymore. In a press release in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, Congressman Jake Ellzey stated that, quote, the Department of Homeland Security has taken actions that make illegal immigration more attractive than ever by reallocating funds that should be prioritized for disaster relief efforts. At a time when FEMA has been warning that they may not have enough funds to cover the rest of hurricane season, money is being funneled into programs that have been repurposed to support illegal migration. Over $1 billion have been funneled into these programs, end quote. So just to recap, American citizens lose thousands of dollars per person per year to pay for people who are in our nation illegally. We have less job opportunities, and the wages for a lot of the jobs that we have been decreased to make up for the amount of illegal hires. Last but not least, the federal government decided that we the people aren't their top priority anymore. So general welfare has never been better, right? But unfortunately, none of what I just listed even comes close to the top when you think about the horrible aftermath of the current policy. If you're a parent or even a top-notch older sibling such as myself, you know that there's something so precious and beautiful about younger children. A light in their eyes, an overflowing joy in their heart due to the fact that they're innocent, untainted by the tragedies that plague our fallen world. You would do anything to protect them and to preserve that. But many, unfortunately, have lost it. They are traumatized and afraid because they have humanity of man and have been completely powerless against it. Because of open border policy, the United States has actually become the capital of the world for the disgusting reality of human trafficking. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol tells us that an estimated 80.3 million people are in modern-day slavery. Of 24.2 million who are trapped in forced labor, 8.2 million are trapped in forced sexual exploitation. The report goes on to add that women and young girls make up 99% of these victims. No little girl should ever have to be put through that, but there have been millions. Mark 9:42 says, quote, "If anyone should cause one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for him if a large millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea." End quote. The fact that there are people out there who are evil enough that they are willing to rip children from their families and sell them into this kind of slavery should make each and every one of us sick. There are millions of people trapped in this way of life every single day, and most of it is actually within our control. Data from the Counter Trafficking Data Collaborative tells us that about 80% of major human trafficking operations actually happen through U.S. border control points. 80%. That means that a vast majority of this crisis is actually within our own government's hands to solve as it relates to our security. So let's see exactly how they've handled this over the last few years, shall we? In 2021, the Biden administration repealed Title 42. Title 42 was a law that, in effect, gave Border Patrol agents legal authority to repel those encountered at the border who hadn't been thoroughly background checked and processed for entry. Seems like it would make sense, right? If you're coming here as a national of a foreign country, we want to make sure that you're going to be safe for our streets and our citizens here. Makes sense, but for whatever reason, we weren't doing that anymore for the last few years. But it's not just rescinding this policy that allowed millions into our country illegally and these issues to be perpetuated. Introducing the CBP1 app, perfect for all of your cross-country needs. If you think it's ridiculous that we seriously had an app for this up until January of this year, you are not alone. In his book, Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country, former advisor to the Secretary of Homeland Security, Charles Marino, tells us that it was a, quote, smartphone-based immigration initial processing app, which, in effect, allows people to enter the country by simply downloading it, entering some information, which he also tells us was typically false, and setting up a parole hearing sometime in the indefinite future, end quote. Technically, under U.S. Border Code and all existing policy on the subject, this was still completely illegal. And Border Patrol agents should have stopped people if we hadn't background checked them, right? Well, they weren't exactly allowed to do that. In the book that I just quoted, a former Border Patrol agent, when interviewed, said, quote, "We can't say no," end quote. That's right. The last administration barred Border Patrol from doing their job and failed to enforce our security. So everything that I've listed today and so much more is a direct result of that. So as you can see, this invasion is absolutely dangerous. We've been losing countless dollars and jobs as American citizens, and we've been perpetuating the slavery and torment of millions of innocent people. And those in power over the last few years kind of just sat there and watched. It's important to realize that an issue like this can ultimately tear a nation apart from the inside. A country without a secure border is a lot like a door without a lock. Anyone can get in at any time and do you harm. I assume that none of you would leave the door wide open to someone who could come in and harm your family at home. So why do we continue leaving the back door wide open as it pertains to our entire country? We can take back our nations, our livelihoods, and so much more. And we can save millions of people. Like I said earlier, 80% of those enslaved are in our hands here. But we have to reform to and maintain a secure border policy in order to do that. It's a big task, and one that sounds slightly intimidating, but each and every one of us here is extremely blessed to live in the United States of America. We can actually affect these things. Read the news and stay informed, reach out to your lawmakers, and last but not least, please use your voice and your vote to do as Proverbs 31:8 says, and quote, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves," end quote. Congratulations. You all are now the best form of defense that we have against this invasion and potential issues like it in the future. So get ready, because we've got some work to do.